So if I have not read this to last
Do whatever you feel comfortable doing.
I'll abstain.
Armando Gallis,
Yes.
Melissa Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ramon Morejon,
Yes.
Jesus Alvarado,
Yes.
William Garcia.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is the payment resolution for our court reporters, Metropolitan Court Reporting. I'll ask our attorney, we've got 3 or 4 of them, we should do them individually. Should we? Or should we do them all together? Okay. We have the first one for Metropolitan Court Reporting in the amount of $435 for meeting. The second one is in the amount of $360 again for a meeting. The third one again is in the amount of $360 for a meeting, or at least an application. The fourth one is in the amount of $435. And the fifth one is the amount, again, of $435. I'll ask our secretary whether, in fact, regarding all of these 5 payment resolutions for Metropolitan Court Reporting, they do, in fact, relate to West New York Zoning Board member matters as opposed to planning board matters.
Yes, they relate to zoning board matters.
All 5 relate to the zoning board matters. That being the case, I'll move them for approval and ask for a second. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Kenneth Blaine,
Yes on all 5.
Rose Puerto,
Yes.
Armando Gallis,
Yes.
Melissa Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ramon Morejon,
Yes.
Jesus Alvarado,
Yes.
William Garcia.
The next matter on the agenda relates to our planners, Mazer, and it is in the amount of $866 regarding one matter. I've spoken to Mr. Layton about this, and he's made whatever changes I thought were necessary to refine it and to bring it within the realm of reasonableness, and something that I could recommend to this board for approval, which I do at this time, and as for a second, is there a second? Roll call, please.
Kenneth Blaine,
Yes.
Rose Puerto,
Yes.
Armando Gallis,
Yes.
Melissa Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ramon Morejon,
Yes.
Jesus Alvarado,
Yes.
William Garcia.
The next matter relates to our engineer. It's a payment resolution in the amount of $69.50. I can't even say that I spoke to the engineer and tried to get it lower. It's $69.50. I'll move this to the full board for approval and ask for a second. Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Kenneth Blaine,
Yes.
Rose Puerto,
Yes.
Armando Gallis,
Yes.
Melissa Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ramon Morejon, Jesus Alvarado, William Garcia.
Now this is the other end. This is from our former attorneys, Genova and Company, and it's for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's for 13, I believe, 13 applications in the amount of $6,333.19. I can say that I spoke to Jennifer Perez about this, who was our attorney. And she did make changes in accordance with my requirements, and I feel comfortable recommending this to the board for full approval, and do so and ask for a second. Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Kenneth Blaine,
Yes.
Rose Puerto,
Yes.
Armando Gallis,
Yes.
Melissa Rodriguez, Ramon Morejon, Jesus Alvarado, William Garcia.
The next item on the agenda is the memorializing resolution in the matter of Maria Hernandez Avenue, LLC, regarding property located at 119 59th Street and 5808-5814 Buchanan. This matter was approved at our April meeting, and I asked our attorney whether the memorializing resolution presently before the board for approval does in fact state all the requirements that the board made to the applicant.
Yes, it does.
That being the case, I'll move this for approval and ask for a second. Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Kenneth Blaine,
Yes?
Rose Puerto,
Yes.
Armando Gallis,
Yes.
Melissa Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ramon Morejon,
Yes.
Jesus Alvarado, William Garcia.
The next memorializing resolution relates to Ramon Reyes, property located at 367th Street. And this also was approved at our April 25th meeting. I asked our attorney again whether this resolution does in fact state everything that was required by this board of the applicant. It does. That being the case, I'll move this for approval and ask for a second. Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Kenneth Blaine,
Yes?
Rose Puerto,
Yes.
Armando Gallis,
Yes.
Melissa Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ramon Morejon, Jesus Alvarado, William Garcia.
Similarly, the next memorializing resolution for XL Properties Urban Renewal Associates for property located at 5701 Boulevard East. This was also approved at our April 25th meeting. I asked our attorney again whether this memorializing resolution does in fact state all the requirements that the board made of the applicant.
It does.
That being the case, I'll move this for approval and ask for a second. Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Kenneth Blaine,
Yes?
Rose Puerto,
I have a question, Mr. Gordon.
Sure.
This is the one, and again, I didn't have a chance to read the resolution, but this is the one that we put a petition about the parking spaces. Is that included in the resolution? It was. Okay, yes. Okay.
Armando Gallis,
Yes.
Melissa Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ramon Morejon,
Yes.
Jesus Alvarado, William Garcia.
Right. To be more detailed about what we're talking about, I do recall what you were talking about. This is Overlook Terrace, and I think they wanted to use it for some type of spiritual parlor or something. And we wanted 2 or 3 parking spaces specifically identified for that. That's the detail you were talking about. That's in the resolution. It is? So you're going to share the attorney's speech? You're going to share his speech? No, she read it. Maria, did we approve that memorializing resolution, or are we still on that vote?
We gotta do we're done with the XL.
We are, okay. The last memorializing resolution relates to John McHale, for property located at 600, 602 54th Street. That was approved at our May 30th meeting. I asked our attorney again whether this includes all of the requirements stated by the board of the applicant. That being the case, I'll move this for approval and ask for a second. Is there a second? Roll call, please.
Kenneth Blaine,
Yes?
Rose Puerto,
Yes.
Armando Gallis,
Yes.
Melissa Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ramon Morejon, Jesus Alvarado, William Garcia.
Okay, now we have some housekeeping and soul searching. I noticed today that our agenda has, I believe, 12 items on it, which is an awful lot for this board. This is the type of agenda this board had many years ago when I first became chair, and we had essentially cleared it up. Obviously, for a variety of reasons, the applications have backed up somewhat, and at this meeting tonight, we're going to regain control over our own schedule. The way we're going to do this, quite frankly, is establish 2 special meetings, one in September and one in October. We can do this because there's an attorney before the board tonight that has 4 matters. Those matters will be at a September 26th special meeting, so we'll get rid of those. There's another developer or attorney that has 3 matters. Those matters will be heard in an October meeting, which date Maria will set tonight, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, we'll set that tonight. That will take care of 7 matters off of our list of 12, which means we will have 5 left at present. We're going to do 2 tonight, which means for the September meeting, at this point, we'll only have 3, and we will again have control over our schedule. Sound like a plan? All right, that being the case, then the first matter I'd like to call is the Lexington Equities matter. Is there anybody here on that? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. 1 second, please. We're supposed to have the second half of the last meeting where we were left off on the agenda of the Felice property.
That's at 7:30.
Oh, that's going to be at 7:30?
Please sit down. Please sit down. This is not a matter for the public at this point.
Well, no, I want to
Please
make
sit
sure
down.
that business gets finished before you go on to new business.
We could call.
Because that's a lengthy matter.
Would you like us to call a police officer, or will you sit down?
I'm not doing anything for you to call police officer, Mr.
You're out
Bailey.
of order.
I'm out of order, please.
How do we get a police officer up here?
There's a button on the side.
No, I don't want to go to emergency. I just want a police officer up there. We had a police officer last time who said he was going to be at every meeting. I told him it wasn't necessary. I was wrong.
Yeah, because why? Because I'm trying to speak something, Mr. Blaney? Excuse me?
They said it was going to be at 7:30 at the last meeting.
They did. I apologize about that, but I'm surprised that there's so many items on the agenda with that such an important matter still at bay. And I mean, I think that's a rightful concern to be able to bring in front of you, Mr. Blaney, just as Rose's concern that she brought in front of you, and I've never heard you sound so ignorant. You told she trying to improve the board, asking to be able to at least have 1 day to review reports, and you said if she doesn't like it, she could resign. I've never heard you sound so ignorant, Mr. Blaney.
Did you go to get a police officer? Maria?
Yes.
You did?
George, hear me.
All right, why don't we continue?
Thank you very much. Today doesn't have the license of equities. I understand that the plan has not heard the report on this matter, and the board is supposed to have the opportunity to review that and consensus.
Can't hear.
Can you not hear me?
No.
You can pick that up. What she is saying, she's representing a matter that's before the board tonight. The board just today got the planner's report and didn't have a chance to review it, so we're going to postpone that. My understanding is you want a special meeting for this and other matters,
That's correct.
and that we're scheduling for September 26th, 6:30 in the evening, same place.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody here on the matter of Lexington Equities Property 6000-6002 Jefferson Street? I don't see anybody coming forward, but whether that is the case or not, please understand that this matter is being postponed to a special meeting on September 26th at 6:30 in the evening in these chambers. What is the next matter that you're here on?
I have 625 61st Street LLC.
Do you have a letter on our agenda? Do you have our agenda?
I do have it. It's number, it's letter K.
Did you just hand the public notices to our attorney for his review?
I do.
Is there any member of the public here regarding the matter K on our agenda tonight, 625-61st Street LLC regarding property located at 625-61st Street. I don't see anybody coming forward, but whether that is the case or not, please understand this matter is also being adjourned to the special meeting on September 26th at 6:30 in the evening in these chambers. That goes to our secretary. That's two. Do you have a third?
Mr. Chairman, I have two remaining matters on the agenda, unfortunately for publication. One was the box, so one is the notice I will try to
And which matters were there?
L
L and M? This matter is going to be postponed tonight to see how big our agenda is. We're having a special meeting. This is going to be number 3 on the special meeting on September 26th, 6:30 in the evening in these chambers. Same time, same place, different date. Yes. 6:30 here. Good night. Thank you for coming. The next item is M. Is there anybody here regarding item M on our agenda, which is M3NJ LLC for property located at 6019 Broadway? 6019 Broadway. Anybody here regarding that application? I don't see anybody, but notwithstanding that, everybody should know this matter is the fourth and last matter that's being adjourned regarding this attorney's request to a special meeting on September 26th, 6:30 in the evening in these chambers. Thank you very much. We'll see you on September 26th. The next item on the agenda is 5113 Bergen Line regarding property located at 5113 Bergen Line. Is there anybody here on that application? I don't see anybody. Is there any member of the public here on that application? Are you here on that application?
We are.
Why don't you step forward? That matter is going to be adjourned to our regular meeting September 16th. September 16th, 6:30 in these chambers. That we'll hear that matter. Thank you. For members of the public, anybody interested, the matter of 5113 Bergen Line Avenue regarding property of 5113.
To make up our minds. So please don't make our jobs any harder than it is. Okay? Mr. Humberto Acosta, please. Ortega, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Humberto Ortega, 6040 Boulevard East in West New York. Mr. Chair, I prepared a presentation, okay, representing, reflecting the comments and concerns of okay, neighbors. We all live, I've lived in West New York for 43 years. I live within the 200 feet section of the notification. really interested in this. So I have prepared a handout that I would like to enter on the record. I have copies for everybody here, and then I will be talking from, okay?
For the record, we received a letter from Mr. Alfonso questioning the ability of one of our members to sit because of the conflict of interest. That member has reviewed that letter and has determined that she personally determined she does not have a conflict and does not intend to recuse herself. So I have advised the chairman. I have advised the chairman to treat the letter as a motion addressed to the board for the recusal of that member. That motion dealt with on September the 16th prior to any vote being taken.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, Mr.
Would I
Armero.
have I'm adding a handout to the record. Do I have a number?
Before you hand it out to the board members and the board members look at it, I need to look at it first before you.
What are you doing getting it in the time? What do you do before I hand it out?
I don't object.
Right. Let him review it.
Mr. Ortega, before you hand it out,
He's right.
I will wait for the chair to give your approval.
Mr. Chair, there's a couple of points I want to address the board. First of all, I just want to know if Mr. Ortega will be representing himself as an expert witness or as a layperson.
If you want to qualify me as an expert witness,
I'm
I
asking you.
am a layperson. I happen to be an engineer, but right now, at this moment, I'm a layperson.
I understand there's certain conclusions that are made. I want the board to understand that they're being presented as lay testimony and not expert testimony.
Lay testimony
And it's given-
as a member of the community.
And it's given the weight that
Yes.
it's given. Also, there are a number of photographs attached to this exhibit. These photographs need to be authenticated in terms of who took the photographs, where they took the photographs, and the actual reflect the conditions when they were taken. There's also reference here to an application, which is the prior application on the site, which was denied. references in here are is information taken out of context from that record. We don't have the full record here, so we don't know in what context this information will be presented. And finally, there's a number of photographs which have superimposed onto it masking of the proposed building. I would object to that as Mr. Ortega is not an architect, and I don't know what program he used and whether or not it's to scale and if it accurately reflects the proposed building. So based on all those objections, we can address them one at a time as they come up. But essentially, those are the issues that I have with this presentation.
Okay, do you have any objections to the presentation on the screen?
Well, again, I'm assuming
This and that is on it.
correct. So as we go through the presentation, then I'm going to
Make objections?
make my objections,
Okay.
and we'll address them
We
one at a
address
time.
them as we go.
Okay.
So, am I allowed to now take the music of exhibits?
I'm not.
Please, Mr. Ortega.
Marking this?
Yeah, what?
Oh, one?
Why don't we put this on the initials and make it one?
Or was it no text? Or
More
H
than
O?
okay.
Make it Ortega one.
Am I missing anybody? The presentation, I've divided it into roughly, or the comments, I've divided it into roughly 4 parts. Can you all hear me back there?
Yes.
Okay. The first part is going to be, we're going to look at the variances and our concerns. Mr. Alonso is correct. You mentioned a former project, which is acknowledged to be a different project, but it's surprisingly similar to what's being applied now. So it behooves us to take a look at it and see what was asked for then and what's being asked for now.
But that's not relevant. I mean, what's being asked now, it's what is.
Okay, all right,
It's
fine.
not what was.
I will then just limit my comments to what's being asked for now compared to the actual zone. Fair enough?
So, Mr. Chair, if I'm correct, and you were going to delete any reference to the Alpi application from this presentation?
I will not use the word Alpi in this presentation.
And anything in Ortega one.
You may strike that column on the spreadsheet. Okay, fair enough? Okay, so our concern is with the fact that the variances, with the exception of the fact that the building height is indeed, within the zoning, everything about it is a huge variance. And what it does to the environment, the community, what it does to that street that was called by the applicant, the special street, the boulevard, it's not really the best use of our land. I'm not going to go through all the numbers here. You can, everybody can read it for themselves. This column pretty evident the zoning requirements on the right-hand side of the lease proposal. The most disturbing thing is the lot occupancy and the resulting lack of front, side yards, and rear yards, okay, and what they do to the area. We have discussed these ad nauseum during the questions. The fact, the concerns about the lack of a loading space and the number of required spaces. That poses a concern to the community as increasing congestion. This is, I want to address here what is being what the variances, what the zoning ordinance calls for as its purposes versus what our analysis is. Let me just, I've just quoted here chosen paragraphs or statements from the zoning ordinance and how we feel this project is affecting and disregarding those purposes. The ordinance says you want to lessen congestion on the streets. Okay, what happens? We're going to have increased traffic in Highland Place or in Monitor Place and on 62nd Street. The way the traffic is going to be forced to enter the parking into that the garage in that building. The ordinance wants developments to provide adequate light and air and open space. You can't really do that when there are no side yards, no rear yards. And for that matter, when the front yard just totally blocks views and narrows the sidewalk. Overcrowding of land and buildings, ditto, same argument. Again, these sentences in black bold, okay, are quoted from the ordinance, okay? There's no coloring there. Avoid undue concentration of population. The required density is more than twice what's allowed by the ordinance. Protect the environment. We're going to be losing at least 2 or 3 really nice trees in front of that property, as shown by the plans. That's not nice if you happen to be green, both as a tree and as a person. Promote a desirable visual environment. This is one of my biggest concerns, okay? If you look at that building mass, as you look at it from the boulevard looking west, and from Monitor Place looking south, and even from the south looking north, okay, it is just not desirable. I know the planner, made an impassioned plea at the last time. I don't happen to agree with that. Okay, let me just quote a little bit. Okay, this is again a quote from the regulation, and I have highlighted the things that I feel are relevant and with respect to the project. The regulation says. The zoning regulation says the regulations were made with reasonable consideration to the character of each district and to the peculiar suitability of the use, okay? And a view of preserving the value of the property and encouraging the most appropriate use. The building just doesn't keep in with the character of Monitor Place. Monitor Place was called by this board a community of single homes. And now here we are replopping this building at the end of that at the end of that street and Boulevard East. I can't help but think that this is going to reduce property values. Okay, when you all of a sudden you have a house which used to have light and air and now has a building wall 3 feet away from it, I think that homeowner is going to be hurt a little bit down the road. And I feel that it doesn't represent the most appropriate use of land. Okay? For instance, you have a beautiful home in that corner. It's going to be raised. It's going to be replaced a building that doesn't meet zoning regulations and requires a lot of variances. A consequence of the high density variance. We have already discussed ad nauseum the congestion of the buses and everything. It's going to increase.
I'm just going to object to this photograph in terms of the authentication. Did you take that photograph?
This photograph was taken from Tower West in January. If you wish, I have a.
The question is, did you take that photograph?
Let me ask you a couple of
Yes.
questions. You know who took that photograph?
Yes, I do.
You know, it was taken this year. Was it accurately?
I'm sorry. No. That was not taken this year. It was just in the green area. and you see the people wearing short sleeves. If you would like me to authenticate each,
I'd like you to tell me if the accurately portrays the condition of as they exist now or as they are proposed. Its application.
that is a picture of Highland part of Highland Court. Okay, that's the building. The condominium at 6035. 6045. I'm sorry. I know we're 6040. That's Highland Court. Okay, that is the way the building looks, and you're going to see a picture of that building later on in the same condition. Okay, and I have a memory stick here. Okay, that has every photograph, and embedded in that file is the date and time when that picture was taken.
But you're testifying now, you need to authenticate that picture as you're presenting me with the evidence.
Mr. Ortega, why don't you just flip and go to the next
Yeah,
page?
I think that's a good idea. All I'm doing is just showing a picture of a building with people and saying, look at the condition in the report. That's all that this says. That's all a picture of a building. There's
I'm also objecting to the photograph.
fine. Okay, let's.
We believe.
May I continue, Mr. Chair? May I continue?
We're going to strike photo.
Are we going to keep the
Yes? No?
You may not consider the photograph if you wish, okay, but the fact that high density variance means increased traffic, mass traffic congestion, that is true. You cannot strike that. You can strike the photograph, it's just an illustration. So the photograph, strike the photograph alone. It's straight. Good. Thank you. Next. This is a diagram, okay? This is been discussed time and time again, so I'm not going to dwell on this, okay? This is an illustration, it's not a photograph, it's a schema showing how the traffic flow is going to be around the property from Boulevard East, west on 62nd, south on Highland Place, south on Monitor, and there's a small diagram there showing how we feel there's going to be a problem getting in and out of that building. And I'm not going to go any more on that because Mr. DiDio has already discussed this very much. And in the interest of time, I will continue. This is your plan. This is your plan. This is a picture of your plans as they stand. All I am showing here is complaining and making observations about the distances between the building and the current structures. And the variances that are being requested. That's just an illustration of your and the concerns. Fair enough?
That's page 9 for table 1.
Okay. Now let's go into representations. Obviously, I cannot have a picture like the applicant can. I don't have the software, okay? I don't have the 3D software that he had. It's really nice, by the way. You know, he was able to rotate the building in and out. However, these pictures, these are pictures that I took, okay? My Panasonic camera, and I can give you the dates and times right now as soon as I pull them out of the, actually, they're right here. I can give them to you. I can give you the timestamps. In case you're wondering, you told me authentication. I can authenticate every one of those photographs. Okay, fine.
I'm just going to object to the photograph on the right as,
That's not a photograph. That's a rendering.
what's a photograph with a rendering.
Correct.
And that rendering appears to be a massing that goes right up to the curb. It's not an accurate representation of the proposed massing.
Incorrect. There's your curve. There's your sidewalk. Can you see this, Mr. Alonso? There's your curve right here. There's the side of the car. There's the curve. I took pains, okay? My graphic artist and I took pains in producing an accurate rendering. It's going to save me a lot of effort if you had actually photographs and diagrams of the building in context with the rest of the community. But we never saw that. All we always saw was a building in the abstract. I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, it would have saved me a lot of explanation if we had had more, their presentation had been more in context. Okay, fine, okay? But there's your objecting to the sidewalk,
No, I'm objecting to the rendering as we don't have anything in terms of scale and mass. We don't know.
I will give you, Mr. Chair, I will give Mr. Alonso an idea of this. Okay? This building is an alleged six-story building with a level. Yeah, I want to choose to call it a seven-story building. Correct? Seven-story building. Windshield condominiums. Let's call it a four-story. Right? This mass is actually in scale smaller than the building next to it. In reality, when you look at your renderings, this mass is actually going to be way up.
So it doesn't actually reflect the mass.
You say
You just said that.
It's giving you a
the attorney said that this represented a huge mass. I am not trying to exaggerate the mass.
Look, I think your point is taken. We're going to argue all night now between whether it's a mass or it's not a mass.
Let's go on. The point is, okay, the point of this photograph is when Mr. Arcilla, one of the very, very first hearings, okay, he said, oh, there's no problem with building, we're having a wall, right next to the Windsor, because it's a black wall. Not true. Count the number of windows. That's the original photograph. Mr. Alonso derailed it. That's the objective of this slide, to argue against the argument that the expert witness gave.
About the windows?
Yes.
So then the one on the right you don't really need.
I am illustrating this. I am illustrating the fact that the building is not. No, got it?
I was just trying to solve a problem.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. This is just a plain old photograph of 6038 monitor. Okay. This homeowner's windows are going to be blocked by having a structure 3 feet away. When we started the hearings, they were 2 feet away, but now they're up to 3 thanks to the most recent revision. Just as an aside, 2 comments here, okay? The planner at the last meeting said, it's okay to have a building, to have your garage wall only 3 feet away from your property, because it's the equivalent of having a 2-story house. The thing that we're conveniently forgetting is the fact that the rest of the tower is an additional 6 stories, which is only 5 feet, and the regulation requires 10 or 15 to the first truck. Okay? I also have another observation. Whoever rents or buys an apartment on the first residential level, okay, namely story 3, that apartment, that next to the rear yard, is going to be right next to Mr. DeDio's chimney. I wonder what those tenants are going to do when that chimney gets, when that fireplace gets fired up and the prevailing westerly winds come down. Okay, here's another thing. Right? I think that the objective of this photograph, I want you to look at, here's the front yard of the Windsor.
Well, directed on page 12.
Correct. Thank you for keeping me in front. I went back again, okay, you see that these are trees without leaves, okay? I went to every building from 60th Street all the way to Zuckerberg, and I measured every building, every first building. The Windsor here is 35 feet. You're going to have a building, here's your the rendering of the property line. That's what's going to happen in that view as you stand on the boulevard. Nice greenery, nice open space in front of the Windsor. Big building.
When you made those measurements, you didn't have a survey of the property, so you don't know exactly what the actual setback is. It's just basically your observation, is that correct?
No, it's not an observation. I have my my 25-foot measuring tape, okay? And I measured from the wall to the side, where the sidewalk ends, and I have either a retaining wall or something like that. No, I don't have a surveyor. I don't have the resources that the survey. It's a survey. No, I didn't carry I didn't drag along the civil engineer. But anyway, let's get back to the show. This is a view looking south from Monterey Place. Again, just to give you an idea, okay? Doesn't have to be. Here's what the building is going to look like, more or less, right? Right to the side. I'm sorry. Yeah, right to the edge of the property. Look at the open vista. That's the point I'm trying to make.
That's page 13.
Page 13.
The blue's right there.
Okay, here I didn't have my graphic artist, so I had this kind of a good representation. But just actually, the applicant, one of the photographs, they do have something that looks like this. Okay, this is my photograph. Their photograph looks identical, except that they didn't really show it on their photograph. I'm trying to show the rendering here, and again, large view to the east. Ditto from the north. Looking to the north. Okay, this is so what it looks like today. I took this picture about a week and a half ago, and here's a superimposed screen. Just to give you a feel for what what is it called, the studios or the Los Angeles. Okay, we don't know this building. This is Park East. The proposed building pretty much going to present the same mass, close to the same mass as Park East. Look at Park East front yards, and side yards, okay? We're going to have a building that's going to have the same mass as here, right up to the side.
That's 8 stories, right?
Let's count.
6.
Okay, where do we start counting? I used to count stories at the first lap. We start counting on the ground floor, Mr. Alessini?
It's your testimony. Yes, yeah.
Okay, I call it a 7-story building, just like this. We go on, look at the beautiful front yards versus what's going to happen if we approve this project. This is just a series of photographs. You will recall, I said a few minutes ago, I went up and down, not up and down, I went down and then I came back, okay? And I measured every yard. Don't believe me, you think this is accurate? You get I'm making this statement, this is my comment. You don't believe this? Go out and measure it yourself and bring back the civil engineer's survey results. Anywhere from, the smallest front yard is 5 feet. The biggest, the windshield, 35. The applicant, 0. Just down the court, just across the street from the proposed building. Just take a look at this, okay? The Camelot. 5 stories, 6 feet 2 inches 7. Okay? 6023 Westover Place. Okay? A small, let's see, 1, 2, 3-story building, 4-story building. Okay? Far shorter than this. Look at this setback here with the beautiful pine trees. Okay? 18-2. 18-2 on this end. Sorry, 18-2 here, 9-6. And look how this building coexists, these two buildings, how they coexist with the nice one-family homes in the company. That was page 18. All right. This is how we see the building's going to look like. Here's the current. Here's the vacant casino lot. Here's the house in the corner. Okay. Here's the windsor, and actually, there's definitely the building is going to go out to the side. There's no argument with that. Okay. It's definitely going to go out to the whether we argue that this is to scale or not, we can still see that this building is going to be at least 90%, twice as marginal.
Again, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to have an ongoing objection to any of these renderings that is superimposed. Now, I don't believe that there's a technical information necessary in order to be properly.
We cannot hear.
Yeah, we can't hear you at all.
We cannot hear at all.
Mr. Chair, I am not purporting to give technical information here, except on the measurements of the yard. I am simply trying to convey an image of about the views of the boulevard, okay? And here's, so I have.
Mr. Ortega, Mr. Alonso has every right to object to this.
Okay.
And since you only have one page, please go to the last page.
Last page is saying just that the casual plea, okay, do not approve this bill, okay? The variances are not offset with any value added. That's my comment, okay? It doesn't really fit with the bullet, okay? The planner said, oh, the building has turned its back to the street and belongs to the boulevard. The building may be on the boulevard, but it's not off the boulevard. It doesn't belong. And the neighbors are going to have their enjoyment of the properties taken away from them.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, I'm going to be calling now public comments. I will be calling from the list we had last week, and I will begin with the last person, to be fair. Joan Palermo.
I just make a comment, please, just for the record, the renderings that is going to take on the pictures will take a point. I'm not an expert testimony there. Testified there, not brought the scale.
It's kind of almost like it works for them instead of the town.
Photographs themselves, I don't see any problem with them.
We can't hear.
And you should not consider those renderings as being as accurate or reflecting anything. You certainly consider his testimony. And what he did. The renderings themselves, I would recommend.
Why don't you move forward? There's plenty of seats up here.
No. That's not a problem. That's why we got speakers here. Microphones.
Yes, come on. Can't all be there.
Okay, Ms. Joan Palermo. Good evening.
Good evening. I will try to cut down on my comments because I think Mr. Ortega made a very eloquent presentation. I attended all of the Meridian Boulevard hearings and some of the hearings in this case, and it was deja vu to me. Same cast of characters, same outrageous application, same utter disregard for the zoning laws of West New York and for the municipal land use law. Same evasive answers to people's questions, which were very valid questions. That was last week. Same disregard for the community, for the environment, and for the quality of life. There's nothing in this application that presents a benefit to the community. And I don't believe that the proponents of this project have even approached the standards that they should. The planner last week in response to some of the questions said that variances they're expected. Well, they're not, in the sense that he said variances are
First off, I'd like to, Josh, use the mic, please.
I do have a exhibit entered into the record. I know we're going to have to pass one over to Mr. Alonso before we consider it for that.
Do so. Yes, he's going to be on wait till.
Why don't you start your presentation?
Well,
You need that document?
yeah, I'm going to have to speak to an objection. And then I have a feeling Mr. Alonso will go ahead and make. I could start in with my presentation.
Read it now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, essentially the entire document is a comparison to the ALPI application and it's the ALPI resolution. So I'm just gonna object to it as.
I think the board's already told you that we're not gonna consider that.
Okay, can I just,
We can. You know, 20 years ago, I had hair. Today, I don't. So it's the same thing. You're comparing 35 units to 80 units or 144 units. And you're making our job extremely hard.
Mr. Chairman, can I respectfully say, give you a couple of reasons why I feel that this should be considered here by this board?
Not if you're comparing the.
No, I'm not giving you a comparison, I'm just speaking to the issue of why I feel this is of relevance to this board and why it's of importance to this
What's
board.
already ruled on that, I think we should respect their ruling and move on. I really do.
Please make comments.
Is
It's
the
not that
board
hard.
aware that the entire site that is being considered here was contained within the ALPI application? So,
See, you keep making
Beyond
reference to
that.
the ALPI. It has nothing to do with this application. It really doesn't.
well, the board, there's a public document, and it is the board's resolution, and that has to do with this identical site. Now,
As I tell you, yeah, but it's a different project. You were talking 88 units versus 35 units. It's a
I'm
big
very
difference.
aware, my entire chart points out the differences.
Mr. Chairman,
It points out the fact that that it is not the
Plus,
same.
you can make the arguments that were made by the people in the Audi case, if you want to make the arguments, but make them for this case. The board has-
Absolutely, I'm making them for this
The
case.
board has ruled no out, so make your arguments, but don't talk about out.
You know, I'm obviously not an expert, right? I'm not a professional. And of course, the applicant has a ton of professionals and expert witnesses over here testifying. I just would like to object myself to not being able to avail myself of a very recently published public document which deals with the identical site and by the final authority.
Make that point to the record. The board has said they're not going to consider that.
As to their single-family residential properties on which shadows will be cast, ensuing traffic problems, loss of air, loss of light, loss of sunlight. The mischaracterization of the neighborhood on the part of the developer as one consisting of high and medium-rise buildings when the 200-foot zone clearly consists of largely single-family residences. The applicant has continually pointed to medium and high-rise structures on Boulevard East as a means of justifying his own oversized proposal. However, the structures of non-conforming use upon which he relies in his argument pre-exist the 1979 advent of the West New York zoning code and thus cannot be used to justify his own application. Rather than undertake a shadow study, the developer relies on a single photograph, which clearly does not satisfy the burden of proof required on the applicant's part to justify this board granting the requested variances. So there are many, many other problems with this proposal, so I just wanted to touch on those very, very quickly. And I'm going to, of course, because of the ruling of the chair, which I respect, go on and just very quickly say that I was very much impressed by one thing in Mr. Ortega's, many things in Mr. Ortega's presentation, but particularly his citing of Chapter 414, Article 1 of the West New York Town Code, which I don't believe was part of your objection, which is in my exhibit. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing because Mr. Ortega did touch on that, but I just want to say for the board members here, please, I hope that every one of you, I know we've had a lot of changes in this board recently, relatively recent changes, but I hope that everybody on this board has had a chance to take a look at 414 Article 1 of our town code, because that is a listing of the reasons, the purpose for our zoning here. And it's these phrases like lessen congestion, provide adequate light and air and open space, prevent overcrowding, prevent undue concentration of population, promote the conservation of open space, prevent urban sprawl. Your approval of this application at hand, I hope you realize, clearly flies in the face of these very, very clearly stated purposes and the intent of our zoning and master plans. The overwhelming sense of this project is that it's too much in too small an area with a crowded roadway system at its frontage. Its benefits, expanding housing availability, do not substantially outweigh the detriments presented to the existing roadways and neighborhoods. The projected site does not accommodate the issues raised by the necessary variances, as traffic and parking will result in more congested and more unsafe roadways in a family neighborhood. The height will block out sun and light and create a bulk and mass feel to a neighborhood dominated by small structures. Additionally, the proposal is out of character with the current existing buildings and neighborhoods surrounding the subject property. I would say that these last two comments that I made were not my own, but were the comments of what I would consider to be the leading authority on this matter. I'm not going to say too much more than that, but I relied on a public document which Mr. Alonso has disputed, and that was the resolution, this board's own ruling, but and that was the board's own characterization of the neighborhood. In conclusion, I'll just make this short. One of the really basic and most important criteria that the courts use in evaluating the actions of a zoning board is the question of if a board has acted either capriciously, arbitrarily, or unreasonably. And so, a decision by this zoning board to approve the Felice application in view of a prior denial by this board at the same site would definitely be all of those: capricious, arbitrary, and unreasonable, and would result...
No, it wouldn't be, because it's an entirely different project. You are comparing Mount Hoppy to this project. Don't do that. It's not fair. Don't do that.
I'm talking about the characterization of the site.
You're talking about the denial given to Hoppy, and we're bringing that into the picture here now, which has nothing to do with this project.
Okay. Well, I will wrap it up with that, and I thank you for the time, and I really appreciate the fact that you are giving all the objectors the time they need to get their comments across.
We thank you, Mr. Briggs.
Other part, which was the section from the West New York Code, I don't believe there's an objection as part of this.
You have a copy of the code that you want to give to the board, that's perfectly all right.
It's part of this entire exhibit. If they want to.
It's not necessary because everybody has that, but I'm sure Mr. Alonso will object to you handing out a copy of the statute.
Can I hand out the entire exhibit if you can?
No.
Okay, I'll just reply on Mr. Ortega's with the quotes, the verbal testimony that I made, and that document that Mr. Ortega.
I think the board is excited to go just like
Okay.
Mr. Juan Martinez. Mr. Juan Martinez. Frank Ferreiro.
Good evening, Francisco Ferreiro, 406 Avenue. Finally got to make my statement. Great. I want to put it in there. Let me get it out there. Because there's almost like a role reversal in my vision here. In my eyes and in my experience, I've been in front of the board before for a use variance. I was trying to simply convert an unused deli to a two-bedroom apartment. One resident came out to oppose it, and that board gave me hell. I almost didn't get it approved. Luckily, they were able to find enough reasons to approve it, and I got it approved. But in my eyes, in my vision, that's what a zoning board is. You're here representing those people. If the residents of West New York, I mean, in honesty, in my vision, this should have been dead from day one, because the board should have noticed the outcry against the project by the residents. We're here to represent the people of West New York. Your job as board members are to represent the residents of West New York. And in development projects and zoning projects, primarily, the residents that live within 200 feet of that development. A lot of those residents came out. It wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It wasn't 20 against and 24. It's been 20, 30, 40, 50 people trying to become lawyers, architects, and come here and try to prove a case against why they don't want this development, when the role should be of the developer to convince this board of the development. And honestly, when you have so many residents against a development, I don't think it should go any further than that. I say, you know, at that point, the planning board turns, or the zoning board turns around and says, Mr. Developer, the residents here don't want it. Can you try to meet with them and see what you guys could work out? It will cost a lot less money probably than this 4-month affair that's cost a lot of money with a huge legal team. Why not set up a meeting with these people who are concerned about what you want to put there and come to a meeting? I'll be a mediator. I'll try to help out. But I think this is the way you go forward. Not take something and bring it here and try to cram it down the throats of the people. I think by working together, you guys can both accomplish your goals. And board, you're here to represent the residents of West New York. I mean, there's no way in my eyes that you could vote for this project. It's just not possible with so many people against it, and not one resident from the area for it. And you're here to represent the residents. Thank you.
Doug Gordon.
Good evening. Good evening. My name's Doug Gordon, and I live at 6600 Boulevard East, Apartment 12G. And I have a couple questions that I'd like to ask you in regards to process.
You can make a comment. You can make a comment. No questions. The question section is closed.
I'll put them in the form of a comment.
Okay.
My first comment is that in a previous board meeting during a major decision, the board chair and the attorney stated, when a conflict of interest was brought up by several of your members on this board, the board attorney and the chairman decided that it was up 100% to that board member to decide whether or not they should recuse themselves. As if to say, well, if the objectors want to go to appeal, fine. You're doing the reverse here. You're saying that this board has to make a decision on whether or not someone should recuse themselves. When you left it up,
what are you talking about?
I'm saying
hold it. Recusement is entirely an internal matter of the board. It's not. I'm sorry.
In this board precedent before.
It's only for the internal matter for the board.
You are incorrect, sir.
It doesn't come into question.
You are incorrect.
We are talking on the application of 6025 Boulevard.
Let me finish my comment. So what this board did in a previous meeting is they allowed a member to decide on whether or not they should recuse themselves, and it did not get to the attorney and the chairman allowed that to happen. Look at the transcripts, Mr. Gallas Menendez.
Another thing I want to make sure happens is that now I see that Ms. Rodriguez is here. She's missed 3 consecutive meetings, and now she is here. I want to make sure that if she votes next week that we have the transcripts from the first meeting, and I want to make sure that if Mr. Chapman votes next week that he has the transcripts for this meeting. Also, financial documents for this board, there are several of them missing, as of about a week ago, including this board attorney, including Mr. Alvarado, am I pronouncing your name correctly? And 2 other board members who are not here today. So I would fully expect that this board has those financial documents. There was Mr. Chapman made mention that he owned property in this town. We have no way of knowing that, and those financial disclosure documents are delinquent. I didn't mean to start off in such an adversarial way, but as I wasn't able to ask a couple procedural questions, this is what happened. So, I am an objector to this application. And excuse me for this prepared statement, and hopefully I'll stay on track and get it through very quickly. And I understand the frustration that this board has with a lot of repetitive stuff and a lot of repetitive questions, and maybe even a lot of repetitive comments. But it's all self-inflicted because this board does not want to see, based on past decisions, they do not want to hear the people. So we go on.
We don't want to hear the people. What are you doing right now? What are all these people doing here right now?
You are exhibiting the frustration that I just spoke of. While I live more than 200 feet from this proposed site, I'm concerned about the welfare of this town and the negative impact of oversized development, and because I sense that this board, based on previous decisions, are attempting to circumvent or even abrogate zoning laws that are designed to protect the citizens and their properties. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, and I'll try to calm down and stop shaking, so I apologize. But just so you get a little more perspective of where I'm coming from, because I don't want you to think that I'm objecting for the sake of objecting, and as a matter of fact, I encourage greatly responsible development. Responsible development is the key word. I'm a strong believer in personal property rights, and I'm an even stronger believer in the rule of law. So as a proponent of personal property rights, I believe that anyone should be able to build whatever they want to on their own property, but within the confines of the existing and established zoning laws. That's the point here. This proposed development does not even come close to adhering to our zoning laws. So we're here tonight. We're here the last few meetings, because this applicant seeks exceptions to the rules of our laws, of our zoning laws. They seek relief. And this is not an unreasonable thing for them to do. What I find unreasonable is to the extent that this applicant seeks relief. And it is clear to me, and I hope it's clear to you, that this proposed development is egregious and unreasonable when looked at within the context of our existing zoning laws. And I'll just brush some of the speakers before me were much more legalistic than I will be, so I'll just breeze through these very quickly, and I hope I have your attention. Proposing a development that is 4 times the size of what is acceptable as outlined in our zoning laws is egregious and unacceptable. Proposing a development that is almost 70% greater than the accepted floor area ratio is unacceptable. Proposing a development that is using up to 90% of the land when it's only supposed to use 75% of the land is unreasonable. So what I'm trying to point out here is these aren't just small little exceptions that this developer is asking for. And the same cast of characters keep on coming up asking for these outrageous variances or exceptions to our law. But I'll just continue. Proposing a development that is 100% greater in density is extreme and unreasonable. Front, rear, and side setbacks are virtually at 0. As a matter of fact, the engineer said, the number's 0. There's no setbacks here, the number's 0. And it should have been 15, 15, and 10 feet respectively. This is downright disrespectful to the surrounding homeowners like Mr. Didio
and Mr. Natalie, and to the rest of the citizens of New York, excuse me, of the town of West New York, especially if it should happen to him if this board continues to set precedents like they do. We've heard testimony from paid so-called experts. So the key word is paid. Their only job is to convince you, the board, that this development should be approved. When it comes to this, they did not live, excuse me, they get paid to get this approved on behalf of the developer. They're paid hires. They do not live in this town. They will not share in the added inconveniences, the added congestion to our streets and the parking. They will not share in the added strains to our local resources or any of the other unintended negative consequences that this oversized development will bring to our town. Their job, and it's legally incumbent upon them, is to prove to the board that the benefits of the proposed development outweigh the negative impact and detriments to this community. They failed in this test miserably. None of the evidence or testimony from the so-called paid expert witnesses demonstrated or carried the burden of proof necessary for this board to grant relief from any of the variances that they requested. They didn't do that. They didn't do their job. Even though they got paid for it, they shouldn't get paid for it because they didn't do their job. This is now incumbent upon this zoning board to deny this application as presented. So I urge this board to use your discretion in a reasonable manner this time. I urge this board to consider their use of discretion based on MLUL laws, based on the town code guidelines, based on the master plan, based on the Planning Board of New Jersey manual, and most of all, the spirit of the laws as set forth in our master plan. Last meeting, Mr. Alonso brought up conflict of interest, and I'm glad he did, because I would like to address that too.
You can't.
Yes,
You can't.
The zoning
You
board...
can't. Sit down, please, Mr. Borden, if you have finished. Do not address the conflict of interest and the recusal.
I will not. The zoning board has a record of approving virtually every applicant that has come before them. It's unusual. This doesn't happen in most places in the state of New Jersey, except in Hudson County. So I implore you now to put aside any political affiliations, any political loyalties, any business interests with the town, personal opinions of what you think should or shouldn't be built in this town, and base your decision solely on the rule of law and some of the other guidelines that I just went over. And most importantly, base them on the spirit of the law. I respectfully urge board members not to cheapen your role in this zoning board, on this zoning board, by not holding this applicant to their burden of proof, of which they failed miserably in attempting to prove. Mr. Alonso, in all likelihood, will stand up at the end of this and say that we were all non-experts and laymen in an effort to discredit us. I submit to you that we know what we speak of. We live here in this town, and we will not stand for being taken advantage just because we're not experts. So I urge this board respectfully to take a stand in the name of this town's citizens and the rule of law and deny this application. Please. Thank you. Thank you.
Janis Zorovich. Did I say your name right, or?
There's a mic. Speak up, please.
I just want to confirm here what everybody else is saying. This is Township in North and you're here for the people. I think the people prove more than the developers and what the developers are proposing isn't right. If we can do something that conforms, that's the word I was always taught. This zoning and planning board is to conform with the, buildings we already have. Like Mr. Blaine had said before, which it really caught me. He said, like with the Meridian, we didn't know what it looked like, but we had to wait until it was built. No offense, after it's built, I wish we would have saw what it was going to look like, because that is not a pretty building. It doesn't conform. And unfortunately, the architect here, he said that he liked that building. So I'm just asking you to do what's right for us. We're here for the people. We are concerned. We're here for your time. And hope you do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Jason Riccardi. Mr. Jason Riccardi. Sabrina Abdel Wahab. Alicia Diaz.
You and I spoke, hoping I could bring a fellow neighbor's statement who is unfortunately for him, he's traveling. So I will give you the name of the...
Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, you're not allowed to read letters or petitions from persons who are not here, because I do have the right to cross-examine anybody who does present testimony or comments. I've chosen not to cross-examine some of the witnesses already, but you're not legally permitted to present a written document from somebody who's not here, because I don't have the ability to
I wasn't aware that he wasn't allowed. I'm sorry. I have no problems with it.
Man, you can make the argument for yourself.
Well, I have my own. I told him that I would do my due diligence to make his views known.
Well, you've done that, but...
No, I haven't really. Can I submit it for reading? Alright, so I'll read my speech. I won't be argumentative. I won't be throwing out numbers because my friends, my fellow neighbors have done a good job of that. But mine is more of an emotional tone. So I start by saying I grew up in Manhattan and I would not have traded that for the world. When my husband and I were looking for a place to live, we decided on West New York because it was a stone's throw away from Manhattan, which made me very happy. And it was still a lovely place to move to. And we chose Monitor Place because it was a quiet street, 17 homes on one side of the street, 12 on the other, all with front yards and trees. And it was a street that had homes with characters and no buildings directly on Monitor Place. I considered it a respite from the busyness of Park Avenue and Boulevard East. I'm happy to report that we have been very happy for just over 20 years with our decisions, and we have regretted it, although the area has gotten more and more congested with vehicles, parking issues, and mass transit ridership being a problem. I don't need to tell the board that Monitor Place and Monitoring Highland Place are two very special blocks in West New York, where the residents have all taken good care of their homes. As much as you can't call it an oasis, these are two extremely lovely and quiet blocks where the homeowners are committed to their homes. I must state that I am truly opposed to the proposed building. The planner and the architect stated that it fits with the existing structures in the immediate area. That is not true. It has been stated that the property belongs to Boulevard East and not a Monitor. That's okay. I have a speech. I have a place. It's been stated that the property belongs to Boulevard East and not to Monitor Place because of its address. And that part is the fact that it's not on Monitor Place because the address is true. But let's look at the Windsor condos, which are adjacent property. It's a 4-story structure, not a 6-story structure as previously stated by the planner and architect. On the corner of Westover and Monitor Place, there is a 4-story building down towards 60th. There are 3 houses, each 3 stories. All of these are shorter than the proposed buildings. How could you possibly think this is a proposed building would fit in? Across the street, there are far taller buildings, Riviera Towers, Tower West, but these are all across the street and not part of the same visual plane. The fact that residents from Riviera Tower are opposed to this act should be a gauge of our opposition. To approve a building of this height and mass will destroy what makes these streets so special. Imagine having a building 6 stories looming over homes that are 3 stories. It will be an eyesore. 2-story parking and 4 stories of residence is directly visible from the front windows of my house. The house that I see now will be replaced by a much taller and solid wall. Although the applicant's representatives have stated the small wall currently existing is past the property line, the plan is to build on the true property line, giving more sidewalk surface space. In fact, the proposed new walls would have no setbacks, and therefore be more encroaching on the sidewalk, obstructive views up Boulevard East and up Monitor Place. What will its impact be with respect to its mechanical systems? Will that be noiseless? Will the recycling and waste collection for this building also be noiseless? Won't this building have containers much larger than the neighboring homes? Now let's consider the impact of the building on traffic. Although the traffic experts stated the impact would be minimal, I do believe that there will be an increase in vehicular traffic, and the added threat of danger from those cars turning into the garage across Boulevard East, traveling down Monitor Place where there are children at play, and exiting the garage on Monitor Place. In addition, the intersection of Monitor and Westover Places will be more dangerous. There are 2 stop signs, one on each corner. As it is now, there is a noticeable number of vehicles that do not stop. With more cars traveling on Monitor Place, the chances of more pedestrian vehicular accidents will increase. Although there will be the required number of parking spaces, what about residences with 6 second cars and or their visitors? What about residents who have laborers contracted to work in their apartments? Meridia Park Avenue will also contribute to this issue. Vehicles will be double parked and blocking driveways. It happens now without these 2 buildings. Where will they find parking in an area already lacking in parking spaces? Although the board cannot directly affect changes in mass transit, it will have an impact on the quality of life to those taking mass transit by increasing and adding more residents to an area already saturated with residents. It has been stated that the majority of the residents would be residents without families. I don't believe that to be the case. The same has been stated about Meridia Park Avenue. I sincerely feel that there will be an impact on the existing school system, which is already overcrowded and classrooms and overstaffed. I understand that the town follows the master plan, making decisions regarding building development. When I read through parts of the master plan, it was my impression that the overall goal of the plan was to approve building projects that would benefit residents of the area and not be harmful, or the proposed building would help to correct a situation in the area. I don't see how this proposed building fulfills either. How could this building be an improvement to the neighborhood? How could it correct an issue in the community as there is nothing wrong with it in the area? The only correction that would be necessary would be to improve the existing house on the property in question, which has been neglected by the owner since the project first began several years ago, and the vacant lot. Based on conversations that I had with family members who lived at 625 Boulevard East, this vacant lot came into me because the sale could not go through without that house being raised. In an ideal world, a 3- or 4-story house should be built on the vacant lot and conduct maintenance of the existing house. It is a shame that the owners purchased the additional lot at a time when real estate prices were high, and they have not been able to recuperate their investment and fulfill their legacy for their family members. This proposal saddens me, and as it will have a huge impact on many levels, but I have faith that the board will make the wise decision.
Aleida Edward.
No comment.
Aleida Edward.
No comment, please.
James Natali.
I've lived on Monitor Place for over 20 years. I consider myself an expert on Monitor Place itself. Lillian Franconi has lived in her house since 1963. Henry and Lori Sawborner, Felix Barrera, and Sybil Williams have all lived here for over 20 years. What drew us to Monitor Place was that there were homes with families, not apartment buildings. Monitor Place is one of the few places in West New York that have front yards with grass and flowers. It is one of the most sought-after locations in West New York, along with Highland Place. The proposed building is too dense, too close to the property lines, and too tall. It does not fit in with the existing neighborhood of one-family and two-family homes. I'm intensely opposed to this project as it will negatively impact my quality of life. It will be fatally detrimental to the neighborhood and ultimately to the town of West New York. We will lose mature trees, which we've already talked about. 3 have been cut down already, and for them to do this work, more will have to be cut down. The replacement of these trees will be put in with small, young growth trees that will take years to develop. The new tenants of this building will be traveling down Monitor Place to get to their apartments. We have kids that...
I thought they didn't want to call them loft because that referenced another bedroom. They might as well just call it a bedroom because it's one of their bedrooms in a 2-bedroom unit. It's their bedroom in a loft, 1-bedroom unit. So that didn't go anywhere. Unfortunately, they don't have room in their units for heating systems or air conditioning systems. They will all be protruding through the walls. On Dan's side or our side of the building, there's 35 windows and 35 air conditioning heating units all blasting out in our backyards. You have to come sit on my back porch some Sunday morning. You would not know you were in West New York. You would think you were somewhere out in the suburbs. Quiet, peaceful, birds screaming. But now let's stick all the air conditioners and windows 75 feet from my backyard. And I sure can't sit out there in the buff no more. Can't sit sun. Somebody will definitely call on me. Anyways, this building is kind of ridiculous. Again, we have a developer trying to crowd as much as they can in one space. The units don't have heat or air conditioning. It's a wall unit that we know what a nightmare they look like sticking out of the buildings. Somebody replaces it with something that don't fit, leaks runs down. They're talking about beautiful brick facade. They're doing 40% brick. What's the rest of it? Stucco and, I forgot what it is, fake stone, basically, is what it calls for. And they don't even show what they're going to do in the back of the building. They're talking about controlling the atmosphere in the parking garage. All I seen represented was holes through the walls for ventilation, and there's no garage door, it's a gate. So how do you control the air inside with a gate? The parking is so tight that the entire parking garage is a ramp. Hopefully you all take time to look at the drawings. The washers and dryers and the water heaters for a lot of the units aren't even in the units themselves, they're in the hallway. You want your water heater and your washer and dryer out in the hallway? That's because they don't fit in the units. There's not enough room. There's not enough room for... Oh, look at the handicap parking. See how far that poor handicapped person has to go all the way through the garage at a 6% grade to try and get to the door to get into the building. Like Henry said, they're out to make money. They don't care. They don't care the quality of living space. They don't care the quality of parking. They don't care who's going to be in there. As long as they can fill their units and make the money. Anyways, thank you very much.
No, I just threw that out there. But you might come sit with me?
Like I said, I just recently from Puerto Rico, and I fell in love with this house online. And I love the neighborhood. Obviously, every time I do it. And so I love the neighborhood and the one since September here officially. son goes to school to Harriet Lane, and we go to the school, and we feel so safe here. I please ask to vote against this because it will affect not only my son, it will affect the children around. And my house, of course, will be the most affected. But see, I don't have anything right in here. I'm talking from my heart. And so, if the building or whatever they build was something according to the parameters, we wouldn't be here. It would be a done deal. So it seems like what they're asking is a little bit more than that, unreasonable. So we're pleading, with you, the board, to please vote against it. And let them come back with something that actually fits the neighborhood. And we want the West New York to progress. We're for that, and people to enjoy it, but it has to be reasonable according to what is established already. Thank you. So I'm nervous.
Anybody else?
Good evening, board. Jose Alcantara, 606 Palisade Avenue. I understand that you have to vote on this in September, but considering the fact that developers already have a presentation and residents already raised their concerns and all of them are for no for this project, is there any way that you guys can vote on this project today?
No.
Why not?
Because we have to study the whole thing.
Well,
what do you think? We're just going to
studying. Well, if there was a presentation, can all
No, we cannot vote tonight. We're going to vote on September the 16th.
Thank you.
Wait for the mayor.
Thank you for your time.
Anybody else?
My name is Danny Bradless. I live at 556 59th Street. Just one thing I have to say for the board. You guys see all the concerned residents here coming up, spitting out their heart to you. Everybody that lives in the neighborhood, people coming up, just basically saying they do not want this project. And I understand what you're saying is the board needs to go and prepare all this, but this is the fourth meeting that we're already having on this matter. And I would assume that everybody on the board here, they all know what's going on with the project, and if they all could probably vote today. And I don't understand why you can't do it. You have all the residents here, everybody out here. You have us out here to almost 10:30. And I don't understand why you're going to have to push us off to September 16th. I just say you should just think about it, that's all.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Mr. Alonso, rebuttal?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. At the last meeting, I indicated that we had filed. Chairman, at the last meeting, I indicated that we had to file revised plans, and the question was whether or not to present the rebuttal testimony before the comments or after the comments. And it was agreed that we would present the rebuttal testimony after the comments. It's a very brief presentation. We followed revised plans to increase the setbacks. Have Mr. Arancibia testify as to that. The other witnesses are here. Basically, they'll just indicate as to whether or not that impacts or affects their prior testimony, and then we will be concluded. I believe Mr. Arancibia told me it should be about 10 minutes to take the presentation.